My quest to find an answer to how much is enough is best prefaced by a few short stories that have inspired my decisions. So let's start there. Almost 125 years ago, in 1893, a young Indian sage, Swami Vivekananda, stood in Chicago speaking to an audience of 7,000. And there, he was there to introduce Hindu religion at the world's first parliament of religions. He spoke of our civilizational idea of inclusion, an idea that is still work in progress. But that summer, Swami Vivekananda met a wealthy American, John D. Rockefeller. Vivekananda intrigued and vexed Rockefeller with his view that the money John had accumulated was not his, that he was merely a channel, a trustee, and his true duty was to use that money for the good of the society. John precipitously left the meeting. A week later, unannounced, he visited Swami Vivekananda again and placed on his desk a document which is the blueprint of his philanthropic plans to build a public institution. We all know what followed: the creation of Rockefeller Foundation, amongst the first and finest philanthropic institutions in the world. So just starting off, I can't help but reflect that it was 125 years ago when in modern capitalism, money first found meaning or profit met purpose. We're all here today because we believe our life's journey is incomplete if we don't find our own highest purpose or answer for ourselves. How much is enough? So let's fast forward 70 years on to 1963. The great German Nobel laureate Heinrich Böll takes us on a bright sunny day to a seafront where a smartly dressed tourist is taking photographs with an expensive camera. He notices a shabbily dressed local fisherman taking a nap in his fishing boat during work hours with no care in the world. He approaches the fisherman and asks him, why is he lazing in the sun instead of catching fish? The fisherman responds that he has already been out on sea and has enough catch for next 2 days. The tourist tells him that if he goes out to catch fish multiple times a day, he would be able to buy a motorboat in less than a year, a second boat in less than 2 years, and so on. The tourist further explains that one day the fisherman could even build a small cold storage plant, a pickling factory, fly around in a helicopter instructing his fleet, and export lobster directly to Paris without a fish middleman. The nonchalant fisherman asks, then what? The tourist enthusiastically continues, then, without a care in the world, you could sit in the harbor, doze in the sun, and look out at the glorious sea. But I'm already doing that, says the fisherman, leaving the tourist pensive with envy. I use this story in my leadership dialogues and ask everyone in the room, who'd they rather be, the fisherman or the tourist? The tourist is clearly the modern corporate executive, workaholic, ambitious, who wants to maximize every day, every hour, put lofty goals, surpass them. But his critics will tell him, what use is that money if you can't enjoy it? Spend time with family, be with yourselves, be in the moment, hear your inner voice and not just the outer din. We know too many people, all of us, who are trying hard to get off that corporate treadmill, don't we? On the other hand, the fisherman on the idyllic beach may appear content, at peace, with not a worry in the world, making most of the summer and the nature. But he's vulnerable to weather, to health, to family needs, to economic necessities, and his critics won't allow him to pass off underachievement as nirvana. What would you rather be? The quintessential Aristotelian question, how much is enough, is about a sustainable balance, not a balance sheet. Neither the tourist nor the fisherman can truly outline an inspiring balance. Which brings me, in search for balance, to my third and final contrast, to Gandhi and Friedman. The world just celebrated and derided 50 years of Friedman's famous New York Times article, The Social Responsibility of Businesses to Make Profits. Friedman's philosophy won him a Nobel last century, but today it no longer holds good even in his own home. Last year, the CEOs of 181 US companies urged that business must look beyond its goal of profit making, serve not just the shareholder but all stakeholders. The purpose of investment too is changing. We can now do good and do well together. That's the reason that between year 2000 and 2020, responsible, sustainable, and impact investments have grown from zero to $30 trillion. And PRI signatories account for $90 trillion. Impact can drive profits and need not impair it. Gandhi's philosophy was the antithesis of Friedman's Nobel Prize winning thesis. Much like Vivekananda, Gandhi believed that we are trustees of the wealth we come across, and we need to use it to improve the world. I feel Gandhi's vision really took off after he was gone. Vinoba Bhave, the independence activist and Mahatma Gandhi's spiritual successor, converted it to Bhudan, walking around the country 13 years. And later, with the assistance of Jayaprakash Narayan, extended it to Sampatidan. Amongst the big business leaders deeply influenced by this philosophy was J.R.D. Tata, who also vehemently disagreed with these gentlemen. In January 1955, as J.R.D. Tata found himself responding to a letter by Jayaprakash Narayan asking him to donate 1/6 of his annual income, he obliged unhesitatingly by donating 1/6 of his income after correcting his team's calculation upwards, insisting that his 1/6 should include income from all his sources, including all his trusts. But alongside, he wrote to JP, "I must confess," and I'm quoting, "I must confess that I do not share your understanding of the capitalist system or its place in industry. I sincerely believe that with adequate safeguards, the cooperative system and evolved capitalism are in their respective fields the most effective, if not the only forms of economic organizations combining decentralization of power, economic power with efficiency." That was 75 years ago, and J.R.D. Tata was espousing the first principles of impact capitalism, that capital plus purpose equals impact. And therein, of all the treaties out there, lies a practical solution to our quest today of finding how much is enough. In fact, by juxtaposing Gandhi's trusteeship with the idea of an impact economy, we can make profit and purpose conjoined twins, balance our inner and outer pursuits, our head and our heart. So friends, to create a society where all can answer how much is enough, we must focus on the impact economy, where impact, an economic concept, like risk and return, measurable, comparable, and empirical measure of an action's benefit to people or the planet, is a must. I'm a child from a refugee family. My father arrived in India from what is now Pakistan on the eve of independence in August 1947 as a 7-year-old boy, walking miles for days. He landed in Amritsar. Refugee camps were in disarray. He worked as a porter at the Amritsar railway station for weeks before the family was relocated. Youngest of 7 kids, he studied little. He learned how to type, write shorthand, and became a lower division clerk. When he retired 40 years later, he was still typing. By age 10, I could myself type and change ribbons on a typewriter. My father may have been a simple clerk, but he had a vision. He knew how to disrupt low-income cycle. He invested in our education at great sacrifice. We lived very humbly, but we went to schools where children of our economic strata won't even dream to go. It had its impact. We did well. I have not forgotten from where I come or the debts I owe. In 2007, as I just turned 38, I decided to put half of all my savings in my charity Aspire Circle and my social enterprise Aspire Impact, and took on the second innings of my life as I answered how much is enough for myself. I've been in the impact sector last 13 plus years. In answering that question, I told myself, I'll give my kids a great education wherever in the world. It changes lives. It'll be their inheritance as it was mine. Have enough to lead a comfortable life, not a luxurious one, and hopefully have enough for medical exigencies. Of course, it took some courage, walking away from big, fat corporate salaries, stock options, and even your identity is not easy. But liberation comes at a cost. I tell my friends, I too missed business travel privileges, the gold and platinum card status, the support staff, and the corporate paraphernalia. But I can tell you, in recent years, I ran a global multilateral traveling over 6 months, annually without a secretary or travel support. I find myself breaking fixed deposits every quarter as I pay fees for my children. And yet, 13 years into this, when I ask myself, is it worth it? The answer, unhesitatingly, every time is yes. And I hope God keeps it that way. And I tell myself, to learn to fly, first we must learn to break free. How much is enough will have 8 billion answers for 8 billion people. Bill Gates' giving pledge is a legendary evolution on what Rockefeller started 100 years before him. I will leave you with this. Business and capital can be a force for good. We should not make capital or profits the villain, though we must overthrow the tyranny of unfettered capitalism and profiteering. In the last 13 plus years, I feel gratitude for having founded or set up 4 successful non-profit startups: Aspire Circle, India's Impact Investors Council, the Global Steering Group for Impact Investment, and Social Finance India. I believe the idea of a sustainable growth is core to the idea of an impact republic, and it is steadily taking shape. We can all only find balance when we restore balance to our unequal world of crushing poverty and catastrophic climate change. The impact movement is a renaissance of social, environmental, and economic balance, all in harmony and proportion, ushering in a new form of conscientious capitalism, the impact economy. We can collectively create an impact economy where the world is in harmony, everyone has means to answer for themselves how much is enough, and this world need not be based on redistribution of income or wealth, on detachment or renunciation. The pursuit of impact economy is the pursuit of purpose, and the pursuit of purpose, to my mind, is indeed the highest aspiration of any life well lived. I pray you all embrace the impact revolution and answer how much is enough to find sustainable balance and inner peace. Thank you.